Hello, my friends, and welcome to today's episode of Rogue Trader. It is a pleasure to be back and to be doing the full story. We're going to do something a little bit different, though, today. I have these characters, and these characters have I, and I would like to get to know more about them. So if I can find the button that sends me... Oh, there we are. They've got biographies. Passing the Flames, refusing Theodora's help. Dogmatic 15. So, let's read about each of our companions' backstory, their biography, and then we're going to go and investigate them. For a quick thing too, we'll also cover this. At this moment, Idira Tlass is a psyker diviner in the service of the rogue trader von Valencius, daughter of a distant world, and a product of a doctrine alien to the Imperium. She perceives the curse of sorcery as a gift she deserves, for only the most skilled and strong can endure the touch of the immaterium. Years of using her sorceress powers have cost both Idira's mind and soul dearly. With each passing day, her ability to keep the malignant forces under control weakens. And so the moment when the warp will devour the diviner without a trace creeps ever closer. Who knows if Idira will be able to come to terms with the inevitable, or if she will turn to the other forbidden forces in search of salvation. I won't let that happen. I will put her out of her misery if she turns traitor or goes full heretic in hopes to keep herself together. I may be a psycho this run, but it doesn't mean I'm going to allow her to go into the ways of the ruinous powers. Not gonna happen. The tall, middle-aged woman stares straight ahead, her eyes vacant as she rubs the implant at her temple. Her collar is undone, and one of the clasps is on the verge of falling off. Sensing your presence, Idira turns her head towards you and offers you a crooked smile, even as her eyes look right through you. Idira, your abilities.
What are you talking about, Lord Captain?
Right there feels like a little bit of possession, doesn't it, lads? Makes me a little worried, a little nervous. You're a psyker? Psykers are only granted the right to live with the Emperor's blessing. Have you ever been to Terra?
Look, Lady Theodora couldn't care less if some eggheads measured my brains or not. It's not about the seal on your forehead, get it? It's about what's in your gut, if it's rotten or not. My gut's stronger than the adamantine on this here ship. And my implants are better than the ones they put in you on your Terra. If they weren't, I wouldn't have lived as long as I have.
Alright. Idira says nothing for a few seconds and then exaggeratedly rolls her eyes. Idira bares her teeth in a savage grin. A febrile gleam in her eye. Where do you come from?
Lyra, an outlying world in the Heathen Stars region. In the Coronis Expanse, the deeper you go, the less visible the
This is a
astronaut
pretty
can
world
get,
name.
and the less people know about the Imperium. The arrival of a rogue trader is the best thing that can happen to a world like that. The very best.
Alright, tell me about Lyra.
It's an out-of-the-way planetoid between two faint stars. On Lyra, a dozen local tyrants fight over 5 measly continents. But they use everything they can to win, from poison to psychers. I haven't been there in many years, but there's nothing for me to miss. Trust me.
Alright. So there's nothing to miss.
But here on the ship is a different story altogether. I saw more wonders in my first year serving Lady von Valancius than I'd seen in my whole life on Lyra. Like my first journey through the warp, I was in bed for 3 days. I felt like supernovas were exploding in my head. I only found out later that I'd gotten off easy. Just through the bulkhead, in the bay next to mine, a whole team turned into...
Oh, she
Me
gooped
rambling
people.
on, Lord Captain. Pay no attention.
Oh no, come on, finish it. I want to hear you say you gooped the people next door.
It wasn't like it was a very fun trip, Lord Captain. But look, if you want to be entertained, I'm the woman for the job. I'll entertain you with one of the stories from my collection, no problem. But if you want to hear about the time I melted everyone in the bay next door, well, I just don't really want to go into the details on that one, alright?
It's alright. I'll ask you again later. Maybe you'll tell me on later. By the way, before I hit the next one, how big is that nut and bolt? And where is it going on this ship? Where is that nut and bolt going on the bridge? It's probably going to go to one of these big suckers, right? I don't know, it's huge though. It's carking huge. What did you do before you came to be on the ship?
Oh, I embroidered wall hangings in honor of our national...
Oh, your sarcasm is beautiful.
I did the same thing I do here, Lord Captain. Divining. Our rulers prized the ability to see into the future. Every psyker that could be found was worth a small fortune on Lyra.
Alright. How much is that fortune gonna net you?
There's no such thing as a peaceful life on Lyra.
Sounds about every planet in the Imperium.
They'd pick psychers up wherever they found them, buy kids off their parents, even just abduct them. Take me, for instance. I got taken from my street gang. The older kids sold me when they noticed there was something off about me. The ruling dynasties had schools where they trained us and beat us black and blue. And then they packed us off to serve. Some of us held on for a long time, but others didn't last. Not everyone's as smart and talented as me, you know. Some people crossed the line and were out of commission before their time.
Alright. She's very confident in herself. How'd you end up in the rogue traders service?
Theodora von Valancius paid a visit to the ruler I was serving at the time. I don't know what the visit was for, and it's no business of mine anyway. I can still remember the way the voices in my head changed when I looked at her. They were practically screaming. She had so much behind her, and plenty ahead of her too.
Interesting. Voices really like to go wild with you, eh?
As I got at her, all of a sudden I heard a whisper. A hint, a suggestion, nothing more. But I know the difference between idle chatter and a real threat. I seized my chance and approached Theodora. I managed to whisper a couple of words in her ear before the wardens dragged me away. They beat me and locked me up. No wonder. It wasn't my place to converse.
No,
with
it ain't your
outsiders.
place.
And then Theodora's people came for me. They broke down the wall, butchered the guards. Also, I could tell them my warning is...
Impressive.
So I said the rest, but I didn't want to...
I wonder what the warning was.
And so I
Don't you?
entered the service of the von Valancius dynasty.
Have you ever been off the ship?
A few times. Not many. And if I think about it, why would I want to? I've got everything I need here. All the whispers I hear are familiar ones. They almost feel like family. And if I want to hear about the nightmares off the ship, I can. After some Amisec. But don't go getting the wrong idea. If I have to, I'll follow you to the edge of the galaxy.
Oh, I hope so. We're two psychers in a pair. We gotta add more psychers. I want more psychers on the ship. Let me have more.
Of course, Lord Captain.
What's it like being a psyker?
You could ask yourself yourself that question, eh, Lord Captain?
I want to know what it's like to be a heretical, unsanctioned psyker.
Every psyker feels their connection with the warp in their own way. One person might see spots and shadows out of the corner of their eye. Another feels fingers running down their spine. As for me, I've got a door in my head. One that's open just a crack. There's no way to close it, no matter how hard I try. I've just had to get used to the whispers from the other side. When I need to use it for work, I listen in more closely. But I usually just try not to notice it.
Nothing like saying to your boss that there's a door in your head that's always cracked open. Do you remember the scene from Stephen King's The Thing during the movie where they were in the mind library? That was such a great scene. That's what that kind of images into my head. I think that's a fantastic scene right there. How do you live with this whispering in your head?
Training, habit, and a little amasec and a couple other things you can get on the lower decks.
Sounds good. I can make my life easier.
It makes things bearable. Sometimes I even wonder if I'm imagining half the voices I hear.
Okay.
When life on board gets a little boring. Better than listening to the living, anyhow.
Oh, that's not true. Some of the living people have really good things to say. What would happen if the door burst open?
Well, if the door opens, that means somebody's planning to come in, right?
Aye.
But screw them. They're not coming through. Trust me. I know how to keep my valuable head locked up tight.
I would say by the shrill, strained laughter. She may have had to deal with this once. I think she's let the door open once before. What about you? Are you afraid of losing control?
Only losers who are afraid of their own gift lose control. Or idiots who never figure out what they are before it's too late. Or little kids who want to play around with their shiny new toy. If you don't know the limits of your abilities, or you're always bouncing around in your own head, that's a recipe for disaster.
That is right there. Quite possibly the best piece of self-improvement advice that a mad woman could ever tell you, is to not always be bouncing in your own head. I think that's a proper bit of advice. I appreciate that. Good way to slip that in. Can you see my future?
All right. That's what I'm here for after all. So, I'm just going to lean on that door in my head a little more, prick up my ears, and listen to what the warp's got to say about you. If you'll allow it, I can listen right now.
Oh, she makes it sound so fun. I like it. Let's have some fun. Sure, listen in for me.
All right. Let's hear what they're whispering about you.
Idira laughs, rubs her hands together, and suddenly freezes with a vacant smile on her face. Her head slightly tilted. You feel goosebumps appear on your skin, and your color begins to waver ever so slightly, as if moved by a breeze from a half-open door.
Seek not on firm ground, but in a golden hall suspended in the void. There waits a child without kin, but with a name blind to truth. She draws the brush across the canvas and does not notice that her palette is full not of paint, but of blood. And with each smear, this well does not deplete, but fills and fills up to the brim. One thing is clear. When this vessel overflows, none will remain unstained.
I like that. I like that. That's grim. That is very grim. That fits the universe so well. What's next?
Among the blind men and false prophets, a red-robed sage seeks the answer to a question.
Oh,
He does not know that it is not the answer he
we know
wants,
what that is.
but the question
We're
that
gonna
will
get
not
ourselves a
remain
techie boy.
focus. Will you help him, rogue trader? But mark that sometimes ignorance is sweeter than oblivion.
Oh, I will help my tech boy, that's for sure. Don't you worry.
A chained hound chases after glimmers of the aurora, but sparks in the scent of oil confound his nose. The chain trails after him. What will happen if you pick it up? Will you become his master? Or merely another beast in the pack of his true lord?
Interesting. That must be, Kaloi, right? A chained hound? Interesting. To be referred to as a chained hound, as the interrogator of a inquisitor, that is very interesting. I like it. Good bit of detail.
Glow of dawn bursts forth from its prison. Dungeon walls cannot contain the dark essence wallowing in the dust. A naive cub pushes his nose into a familiar hand, one that holds death in twisted glass. Cherish it or cast it off as a burden. The sword of change has already been raised. What is one more life to it?
Cub. Cub would be a pup. Or a little bear, right? Those cub cats. Have to be... I feel like that would have to be a wolf. Or, you just say a wolf cub. Or a cat, right? Like a lion cub. So, my guess is that's going to be Ulfa. A space marine, yeah? I was going to go to the prison anyways, I was thinking. After going and getting a navigator, go to the prison. It's kind of where I wanted to go. A hound in a wolf cub. Alright, I like these. I like Idira. I like this little bit. This is a nice bit.
I'm sorry, Lord Captain. The voices are going wild. I can't make out a thing. I'll try to rein them in, somehow. But for now...
That's alright. That's alright, don't worry. Did you know Theodora von Valancy as well?
None of the officers knew the Lord Captain well. Not even Abelard, and she was always closer to him than anyone else. She told me from the off that if I ever listened to anything in the warp about her without her permission, I'd be going out through the airlock. I'm not an idiot, so I never stuck my nose where it didn't belong. Only when I was asked.
That's a good psyker, good diviner.
It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that she's gone. Lady von Valancius gave me everything I have. She opened the stars to me and the paths between them. I still think I can hear her voice.
You probably can, but it's probably that bastard controlling her. Things are strained between you and Argenta, isn't that right?
The little sister is afflicted with her own set of voices. Ones that whisper to her about corruption and heresy. The silly girl doesn't realize that if she wants to find the source, she needs to start by looking in her own head.
Oh. Could that mean that Argenta actually does have doubts about her mission? Could we lead her down the path of a fallen sister and turn her into a repentia? These are all bad ideas, not for this playthrough, no!
You bet I do, Lord Captain.
You have a new story. Idira becomes much more animated and her expression turns slightly dreamy as she recalls one of her stories.
Okay, so we went to Footfall once. Well, I mean, Lord Captain Theodora went to Footfall a lot. But on that occasion, she took me with her for some reason. My day had gotten off to a bad start. My head had been yammering since I woke up, but there was nothing else for it. I had to go. We arrived at the place, and what a place! All the gentlemen and ladies dressed to kill, showing off their encrusted implants, all clustered around little tables. Well, Turned out it was a gaming den. And not just any gaming den, but one run by somebody with deep pockets for people with just as much cash to splash. You should have seen it. People gambling away planets in a game of regicide. Anyway, so the Lord Captain wanted me to help her beat some guy. So I tell her, the chips won't land in your favor. You'll get a bad hand. Don't sit down at that table, your ladyship. But did she listen? Of course she didn't. If there's one thing she never lacked, it's stubbornness. So they sat down and the cards were dealt. I'm hovering around like I'm not involved, but I'm keeping my eye on things. And everything in my head keeps getting louder and louder. Anyway, it's a good thing I realized in time that my mind wasn't going haywire over a losing hand, but something else. I made some excuse to drag the Lord Captain up from the table and took her away from that place. And a few minutes later, the room where we'd been... It turned out some wise guy had the same bright idea to bring a pet psyker along with him. One of those ones who just scuttle around in Footfall's underbelly. And the psyker just freaked out, I guess. After all the commotion, people went to see what happened in the room. And they'd all gone for each other's throats. Literally. With teeth. And I think they completely detached that asteroid from Footfall and pushed it off into open space so it would head off toward the local star.
Oh my god. Oh, that story was so good. Oh, nothing like taking off a rotten piece and just throwing it into the garbage and going, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, that's carking beautiful. Oh, I must take my leave, Idira.
Of course. Always at your service. Whenever...
Oh, that was beautiful. Well, my friends, with that is where we're going to end this episode. We got to know our characters, got to learn a bit more about them, and yes, we are going to be talking to the good sister in a moment. Just so I can do her quest. But we'll pick that up in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. Shout out to the patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on Patreon. You too can support on Patreon by heading in the description below. You can also support by becoming a channel member. Or you can support for free by hitting like, subscribe, a bell notification, and commenting. I'd love to know your thoughts about each of these characters. Who's your favourite? Who do you hate? Who do you like the least? Who, maybe they're all in the same spot for you. What order do you like the initial 3? Let me know. We're going to be going in to our missions and start exploring the world. We'll see you in the next one, lads. Peace.